Taiwan. I'm Brossard with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. With Taiwan's presidential election just 2 months away, talk of a joint opposition ticket is intensifying. The country's leading opposition candidates have held a secret meeting to discuss joining forces for January's race. Stash Butler reports.
A secret meeting in Taipei captured by local media between two opposition presidential candidates, fueling rumors they'd finally reached a deal to form a historic joint ticket for Taiwan's January election. The candidates, former Taipei Mayor Ke Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party and the Kuomintang's Hou You-yi, are second and third in the polls. To join forces, one of them would need to step back and take the vice presidential spot. But hours later, word from both parties. No deal yet on who'll give way. Despite the challenges, earlier this week, Ke and Hou's parties agreed to work together on legislative races, suggesting that a merger for the presidential campaign, aimed at bringing down the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, might not be too far off.
民进党会搞到今天台湾超过60%以上的民意希望政党轮替，当然是他做太差嘛，对不对？那也因为这个民意，你知道所以我们有才会考虑说，那这个战略目标如果是要有没有可能政党合作去达到政党轮替的这个目标嘛
Though dissatisfaction with his party is high, DPP candidate and current Vice President Lai Ching-te is still leading in the polls. To shore up support, he's hinted for the first time he could choose Taiwan's influential envoy to the US, Xiaobi Kim, to be his running mate.
大概社会讨论最多是萧美琴嘛，
是，
还有郑丽君嘛，
是，
另外呢还有科技界的人士，还有另外其他领域像文化界的人，其实都有人推荐。
萧美琴小姐应该也是在优先名单的优先之上。
呀，你可以这样讲。
For months, Lai's campaign has benefited from a divided opposition. But if his rivals decide now to unite, even a popular VP pick may not be enough to help Taiwan's second-in-command win the country's top job. Andy Xue and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's leaders have been warning of China's meddling in the run-up to January's presidential elections. Reporter Rick Glauert spoke to political science professor Chen Fangyu about how Beijing is seeking to influence Taiwan's big vote.
So we've been hearing a lot of warnings about Chinese interference in Taiwan's upcoming elections. Could you just tell us what Beijing might be hoping to achieve by interfering in the elections?
Well, it's very clear that Beijing has a political agenda of pushing for unification. Therefore, they have systematically pushing for more pro-China policies and pro-China candidates. That is first. But also, we also have to notice that Beijing's cognitive warfare or other kinds of interference in Taiwan is not only for the election itself, but also they want to spread for the distrust for the democratic systems overall. It's just like Russians to do with the US and for other democratic countries.
And what does Chinese meddling in these elections look like? What tools do they use to interfere?
Well, China's interference is increasing but also evolving. So first of all, they have a kind of various tools for propaganda. Like they will use the social media, they will use the app like TikTok and other apps to spread out for the positive image of China. They also use a lot of cognitive warfare on the social media. For example, they pretend they are not political. For example, they use a lot of social groups on the mountains, the local communities, the movies, and the food. But when the election is approaching, they will spread a lot of political information to influence people's perception. So they have a lot of different kinds of tools.
Could you outline exactly what is at risk for Taiwan as it comes up to the presidential and parliamentary elections?
I think the most important thing is that the cognitive warfare and also the informational warfare wants to spread this distrust and chaotic public spheres among people. So that will they will spread a lot of disinformation, and also they want to spur a lot of emotional reactions to a lot of public events. Therefore, people cannot have very high quality discussion about the public policy. And then, therefore, we cannot have a very good a discussion or evaluations on the political parties or the politicians. That will hurt the so-called responsibility and accountability in democracies. So we have to discern what is true or false on the information, and also we want to notice that there are a lot of different emotional reactions there, and we have to be very careful about that.
That was political science professor Chen Fangyu speaking to reporter Rick Glauert about China's influence on Taiwan's elections. Taiwan has reported 43 Chinese military aircraft and 7 Navy ships operating around the country in the past 24 hours. The country's military says China was conducting joint combat patrols and used a combination of different aircraft. Of the group of planes, 37 breached Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ, which is an area used for defensive purposes but is not part of the country's territory. More than 24 fighter jets took part in the exercises alongside aerial refueling planes. This means China was practicing how to refuel its jets mid-flight and keep them in the air longer. For more on what China's recent incursion into Taiwan's ADIZ means, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Ben Lewis. He's an independent defense analyst who monitors military activity around Taiwan.
Last time we saw China sail an aircraft carrier into the Western Pacific, we saw some of the largest unannounced exercise that China's ever conducted. Are we seeing something similar with today's incursions?
Seems to be they're practicing a similar type of operation that they were in early September. Basically, what the PLA is attempting to practice is making sure that their planes can, one, reach the area where they need to be in the Western Pacific, and two, ensure that they can stay up in the air for longer. So these aerial tankers fly around, airplanes fly up behind them, refuel in midair, and that extends their ability to stay in the air for much longer, and it induces longer-term operations in the air.
And why is China operating in this area, and are we going to see more of these types of exercises?
I think it's definitely possible we'll be seeing more of these kinds of drills in the future. I was personally surprised that we had one last month, and now they're doing it again. The Western Pacific is an area where the PLAN doesn't have as much experience, and they're trying to get some because they need to. The PLA is anticipating an intervention in a Taiwan contingency by the United States. That intervention is going to be approaching from the Western Pacific, among other places. So they need to make sure they can get out there and do what they need to do, and they have a long way to go before they can.
That was Ben Lewis, a defense analyst in Washington, D.C., speaking with our reporter Jaime Okan. The U.S. and China have said their leaders aim to meet at the APEC summit later this month, but the plans are yet to be finalized. Joe Biden and Xi Jinping would have in-person talks on the sidelines of the global conference in San Francisco in mid-November. White House officials didn't say what would be discussed, but said the leaders aim to have a constructive conversation.
Look, I mean, we've been very clear. Our policy and how we move forward with China hasn't changed. This is intense competition, right? That we have said that we want to move forward with China. We understand that, and intense competition means intense diplomacy. That's what you're going to see. That's what the president is going to be doing, and having, you know, a tough conversation, but important conversation.
In Japan, a suspected gunman has been arrested after an 8-hour standoff with police. Officers captured the 86-year-old man who allegedly took 2 people hostage at a post office in Warabi, north of Tokyo. He is also a suspect in an earlier shooting at a hospital in a neighboring city that left a doctor and patient injured. Police are also looking into a fire at an apartment building near the hospital they believe may be related. Dozens of people are reported dead after an Israeli airstrike on the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza. Gaza's health ministry says 50 people were killed and over 150 wounded, and footage shows the catastrophic damage caused by the attack. This adds to the more than 8,000 who are said to have died in the enclave since Israel began its bombing campaign. Israel's military says the strike targeted a Hamas stronghold in the camp, killing Ibrahim Diari, a commander they say is responsible for the October 7th attack on Israel. That assault left around 1,400 people dead, while more than 200 were taken hostage by Hamas fighters. Hamas strongly denies that one of its leaders was at the refugee camp. At least 48 people are dead and dozens still missing after Hurricane Otis hit Mexico. The record-breaking storm swept through the tourist resort of Acapulco on the country's Pacific coast in late October. The devastation caused power outages, flooding, and severe damage to buildings. It left many locals without food or water. Officials say supplies are now being delivered to the area. 7 more dengue fever deaths have been recorded in Taiwan over the past week. That's despite a decline in infections over the past 3 weeks. The Centers for Disease Control reported over 1,500 new cases, mostly in the country's south. There have been over 20,000 dengue infections this year, making it Taiwan's worst dengue outbreak since 2015. Cases are expected to fall as temperatures cool, but authorities are urging people to get flu shots ahead of the influenza season. The country has seen a large number of hornet attacks this season, as calls to public services about sightings of the insect have increased. Scientists are now weighing in on why there's been such a big rise in incidents this year. Jeremy Olivier has more.
Out for a leisurely walk, a hiking group was attacked by a swarm of hornets in the mountainous area of Nantou County in late October. 6 of the 14 people in the group suffered minor injuries.
这2个现场就是被叮比较多包，还会有点喘，而剩下4个人就是比较稍微还好。那我们现场问他们，他们说这只黑色大只的，所以也不太确定到底是土蜂还是虎头蜂这样子。
It's just the latest in a growing number of hornet attacks in Taiwan this season. In one case, in New Taipei, 2 people died from their stings. Asian hornets are a native species in the country. They're usually most active in the late summer and early autumn months, due to the insect's life cycle. Every spring, queens search for suitable places to build nests for their colonies. Once found, they begin raising the first generation of worker hornets, and the colony grows. It reaches the mature stage as summer ends, and hits its peak at the end of autumn. After the male and female hornets mate, the females live through the winter and become the queens of new colonies, while the rest of the original nest dies off. Some scientists say the recent attacks could be related to climate change.
我们最近几年好像很少台风进来，所以最近几年那个虎头蜂的这个数量没有这个天然灾害的影响，变多了。而且最近几年我们也发现到说，这个气候暖化，气候这个真的是也造成虎头蜂跟着生态会改变。
Hiking on mountain trails is a major pastime here, one that has become even more popular in the past few years. But though it's an activity with few barriers to entry, there are still risks to be aware of, including wildlife like hornets. Experts say there are a few things hikers can do to keep themselves safe and hornet sting free. Most advise not to use strong perfumes or wear clothing that's too brightly colored. But others say that just getting out of the hornet's line of sight is the most important thing.
它们对于震动、对于气流是敏感的，但虎头蜂的视力其实不是很好。如果你发现这个虎头蜂从正面出来攻击你、追击你，你当然是要反面啊，因为它家在那里。
While wild species are a central part of Taiwan's biodiversity, not all of them mix well with humans. As climate change continues to impact the country's wildlife, people who enjoy its natural scenery should be aware of those effects and how to stay safe. Klein Wong and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for joining us on What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out these competitors riding the waves at the 2023 Pan American Games Surf Finals. I'm Philip Brossard. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
For more stories from here in Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
At a time when the world feels more divided, a platform for diverse voices to come together. I'm Divi Gopalan. Join the dots. Be part of the conversation. Connected where opinions matter.